Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.
You can tell a lot about a company by where it invests. At ConocoPhillips, we're investing in Arctic science and engineering at the University of Alaska Anchorage. And we're supporting today's students and tomorrow's engineers at UAF. In fact, today, more than 100 of our employees are University of Alaska graduates. And our future is in their hands. We happen to think that's a pretty good investment. ConocoPhillips, Alaska's oil and gas company.
The National Weather Service.
Hello and welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberly Hoeppner, and today is February 20th, 2014. In just a few moments, we'll be on our way to talk about the weather that's going on across the state, including your public, aviation, and marine forecasts. As always, when we're not on air, you can always see us, our information at www.arh.noaa.gov, or you can call in on our weather information line 1-800-472-0391. And as always, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter on our social pages on our ARA.noaa.gov website, and you can also type in weather.gov and navigate to the destination of your choice in Alaska. Now on to the important topics of the day. The western coastal areas have a watch out for winter storm weather along the southern parts of the Seward Peninsula on south towards the Yukon Delta area, including the areas across the St. Lawrence Island. Now these areas are expecting some winter weather to move in on Friday afternoon to Friday evening on the areas further north, and they're expecting storm activity to occur through Saturday afternoon. So be sure to watch for updates in these areas, as they're expecting some very gusty winds between 25 and 35 miles per hour, with blowing snow, reducing visibilities down to 1/2 mile or less at times. Now on to your satellite view of the weather that's going to be bringing the weather in the next few days. Right here we have a comet cloud that's developed just in the northern parts of the Pacific, and a cold air mass coming around a circulation along the western part of the Aleutians. There's a low circulation just center near Shimia. So I'll put this into motion, and you can take a look at these two systems that are moving into the Aleutian chain and the Alaska Peninsula. And also note that there are a lot of whitish colored clouds here. This is warmer air mass that's moving up towards the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. And to the north, the darker gray colors show areas where there's colder cloud tops and hence a colder air mass. Across the Gulf waters today, we had a bit of clearing, but some of the lower cloud activity, which was not captured, as very close temperatures, the cloud to the surface of the sea surface temperatures are very close. So we do have some clouds that are circulating around the Gulf, bringing some shower activity up into the southeast. So they saw some scattered snow shower activity through the day today, as well as they did across the Cook Inlet. General cloudiness across the southern part, some breaks across just to the north of the range, with some snow shower activity still continuing along the very far eastern areas of the state, where there's a weakening boundary from a front that moved through yesterday. Across the northern Arctic coast and northwest, just general low clouds here and very cold temperatures. And the main areas to watch is the plume of clouds that is streaming across the Alaska Peninsula, and then the colder temperatures, as we noted just a moment ago, across the northern Bering. Putting that into motion, you can see that this moisture, warm, rich air mass is moving up towards Kodiak Island, and you can see that one more time. That's moving up pretty fast. So be on the lookout for some warmer conditions, winds with this next front. Here was the front this afternoon, a low pressure system just to the south, about a 976 low. It had a front extending just to the south of Kodiak Island, a mix of rain and snow just to the south of the island chain, with snow reported across the eastern parts of the Bering, gusty winds across the southwestern coastal areas, and further west the other low pressure system was affecting the western part of the Aleutian chain, bringing some snow showers along here. Across the Gulf waters, just light shower activity, mainly increased winds across a low circulation that was occurring across the central part of the Gulf. Some shower activity making it inland along a weakening boundary across the southeastern coastal waters. Further across the eastern part of the Alaska range, some light snow shower activity was moving on up into the upper Yukon Valley areas, and across the northwestern coastal areas, just mainly cloudy with all the winds and snow staying across the southwestern coastal areas for now. But as we head into your evening hours, this low pressure system is going to continue on its track north, and we'll see a mix of rain and snow occurring across the eastern and central part of the Aleutians. And just to the east of the system and south, we'll see this warmer air mass moving up. So that's going to be mainly all rain here. Should see some snow shower activity moving into the Kodiak area and possibly changing over to rain after midnight. This system looks like it'll probably push a little bit faster than what is currently depicted, as the system, as you can see, the cloud cover was already pluming up over through the southwest Bristol Bay. Across the southeast, general cloudiness overnight. Some breaks in the clouds are possible, but expect patchy fog to form along the southeastern waters for tomorrow morning. And areas across the south, we'll see some patchy fog activity as we have high pressure moving in from the northeast. So patchy fog activity just south of the Brooks Range area and along the north and northwestern coast. Across the Bering, the winds are going to start picking up as we head through the night across the central Aleutians all the way across the Alaska Peninsula. Mainly snow showery activity staying across the Pribilofs, a little bit gusty across there between 25 and 35 miles per hour. And all the way out west, this system will continue to bring some snow shower activity across the western Aleutians overnight. And then as we head into your Friday forecast, a lot of precipitation from the southwest coastal areas all the way out through the Aleutian chain. The bulk of the precipitation is going to move across the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern parts of the Bering. So expect a mix of rain and snow showers across the Alaska Peninsula and through much of the Aleutians, and then it'll change over to snow where the colder temperatures are wrapping around the backside of this low that's deepening to 971 by your Friday forecast. All right, for the front that's across the southern Gulf, it's not going to progress very far and bring plenty of precip into Kodiak Island, mostly falling as snow overnight and then switching over to rain as we go through the day on Friday. Some of this precip will make it out ahead of this system and into the eastern parts of the Kenai. As this high pressure is building into the northeastern parts of the state, that's going to help keep this system from making much progress into the mainland. So drier conditions overall across much of the mainland, some patchy fog in the morning time and then clearing out later. For the southeast, some shower activity will continue to ride ahead of this low pressure system out in the west. Mainly is going to be snow in the morning hours, and then as they warm through the day, they'll probably change over to rain as you get closer to the Dixon entrance. They were already reporting temperatures in the low to mid 30s this afternoon. So expect those temperatures to be on that warming trend still tomorrow. Across the eastern parts of the Bering, you can see that there's a very tight pressure gradient around this surface feature. So this will bring some gusty winds and blowing snow. And as we head through the day, it's going to begin to push north, and hence why we have the winter storm watch out for areas just north, as that snow is going to be moving across the southern parts of the Seward Peninsula by late in the day on Friday. And then for your Saturday forecast, the pressure gradient is going to be tight all across through the Kodiak Island areas. So gusty winds between 25 and 35 miles per hour, gusts up to 55 to 60 miles per hour, especially across the Alaska Peninsula and in through channel terrain as that system makes its way north. And behind the system that is going to be bringing the weather across the eastern parts of the Bering, the system is going to be deepening from a 971 to a 965 millibar low in the western parts of the Bering. So expect to see some gusty winds on the backside of this low, mainly affecting the farther western parts of the Bering, and just bring some snow shower activity from the western to central parts of the Aleutians as another cold surge comes in behind this low pressure system. In the meanwhile, this low in the northern Pacific is going to be pushing a warmer air mass even further north, and this will probably be all rain in the western parts of the Gulf, with shower activity making it up into the Kenai Peninsula and possibly some areas across the Prince William Sound. We'll just have to wait and get closer to the time period to see how far east that this low can track, but it will likely stay close to the parent low and track over into the eastern parts of the Bering as it moves to the north. So expect snow activities to stay over the Seward Peninsula area, with rain and mix of snow across areas of the southwest. Other parts of the mainland is going to be rather dry as a cold, drier air mass works through the eastern parts of the state, and the southeast staying in between the areas of high pressure and low pressure. They will have offshore flow and possibly see some patchy fog during the morning hours before improving in the afternoon. Now onto your temperatures for the day. Like I said, they were into the lower to mid-30s across the southeastern area, with the highest temperatures near the Dixon entrance between 34 and 35 degrees this afternoon. A large temperature gradient from the North Gulf Coast area, seeing in the mid-20s to the lower 30s, and then in the single digits across the Copper River Valley and north in the single digits, and very quickly to near -20 as you get to the upper Yukon Valley. Across the northern Arctic coast, they saw temperatures from -25 to -43 at Prudhoe Bay. Actually, it was -43. And across the northwestern coastal areas from -15 to -20. Dropping south of the Seward Peninsula, temperatures climb slowly into the single-digit range between 5 and 10 degrees. Bristol Bay around 5 to 10 degrees as well. The Alaska Peninsula, where the warm front is moving through, in the mid-30s to a high of 40 degrees for Dutch Harbor this afternoon. Across the remaining of the Aleutians, slightly warm across the central part, and then cooler on the backside of low pressure near 33 at Shimia. And looking at your temperatures for tonight, not improving much for Prudhoe Bay, staying right at that -43, with temperatures in the -10 degree to -40 degree just north of the Brooks Range. As you drop south through the state, slightly cooler temperatures still across through Eagle, down to -30 and -33, and then getting down to closer to the coast and the southwestern areas, we'll see temperatures mainly in the 5 to 10 degree range, hugging along the coast, a range from the western parts of the Gulf where the warm front is going to be just to the south. See temperatures near 30, and then along the coastal locations in the upper teens. Across the southeast, mainly in the teens to lower 20s for this location. The Bering will see mainly temperatures in the low 30s to mid-30s overnight. And then highs for tomorrow will be in the lower teens to -30 degrees across the Arctic coast, and slowly warm towards the southwest, with temperatures climbing quite a bit between 30 and 40 degrees across the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island. Southeast will also see temperatures warm into the mid-30s. Across the Aleutian chain, expect temperatures to be very warm again, climbing as high as 44 degrees in some locations and moderating to 36 degrees near Shimia. Now looking at your flying weather for tomorrow, most of these areas in MVFR across the south and southeast will see MVFR due to foggy conditions and then clearing out in the afternoon. Fog conditions also across the northern Arctic coast will stay through the day. IFR conditions will be possible around the low pressure systems that are circulating across the Alaska Peninsula, especially as you go north towards the boundary that's along the central parts of the Bering. Now looking at your pass conditions in more depth, the Anatuvik Pass will be mainly VFR and Adigan Pass will also be VFR conditions. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass will be VFR to MVFR later in the day, and then Rainy Pass will stay VFR all day. Windy Pass will be MVFR to VFR later in the day, and then Isabel Pass will be MVFR clearing to VFR, and Mentasta will be MVFR to VFR. Tanita Pass will be MVFR going to VFR, and Portage will be IFR in the morning and then later VFR. Chilkoot and White Pass expect MVFR to clear to VFR later in the day. Freezing levels across the area, across the southeast, the freezing level on the surface, and then all across to the western part of the Gulf and through the central parts of the Bering. Freezing level heights are from 2,000 to 6,000 feet very quickly across the Alaska Peninsula and all below 2,000 feet across the southeastern areas. Tomorrow's icing mainly focused around the circulation in the Bering with possible occasional to isolated severe conditions across the central and eastern parts of the Bering. Looking at your jet stream for tomorrow, mainly a westerly flow with the strongest jet stream south of the Aleutian chain, ridging moving in across the Gulf areas. With your levels at 9,000 feet, the circulation across the Bering will be out of the south and southeast, with the highest speeds across the northern part, near the Pribilofs and the central parts of the Bering. And then ridging here, we'll see some gusty winds just along the western Gulf and down towards the Dixon entrance out of the west. Westerly flow across the mainland between 10 and 20 knots. And then here's that circulation with the strongest circulation to the north of the center of the low. Southerly flow across the southern half, but weak flow out of the west here, and then across the southeast between 10 and 15. All right, tomorrow's turbulence, mainly around the eastern parts of the Bering. In just a moment, we'll be back with your marine forecast.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog.
Hey there, stargazers. I'm Dean Regas, astronomer for the Cincinnati Observatory.
And I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Plot Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida. Fellow stargazer Marlene Hidalgo will join us to help you find your way around the sky. What's with the posing?
Didn't you know that there's a constellation named Elvis in the sky?
No.
Okay, well, it's nothing official, but if you squint and let your imagination go wild, a group of stars looks a little like the king.
Are you talking about Orion? He does have a snazzy belt like Elvis.
I know. Picture Orion as the Elvis in the later years donning his sparkly outfit.
And you know what else he's got? A hound dog.
I love it. Let's show you.
Okay, we have our sky set for any night this week facing southeast at 8 p.m. There you'll easily find the constellation Orion the Hunter standing about halfway up in the sky with his 3 stars in a row. Okay, Dean, so how exactly does this giant hunter look like Elvis?
You mean beyond the star-studded wardrobe? Well, in the traditional drawing of Orion, he's a hunter holding a club in one hand and a lion skin in the other, trying to fend off a charging bull. That's Taurus over in the right. But what if it's really Elvis wearing a sequin belt, raising a microphone in one hand, holding back his adoring fans with the other?
Wow, that's some imagination. I guess it does look like an Elvis pose.
Thank you very much.
Well, your Elvis is complete with some really bright stars. The bright blue star on his left foot is called Rigel. That could passes a blue suede shoe, and the reddish star under his right arm is called Betelgeuse. Seems like a funny place to put a sequin.
Rigel is a supergiant star 772 light-years from us. It is one of the most luminous stars in the galaxy, shining about 130,000 times brighter than our sun. If Rigel was 25 times closer to us, it would appear many times brighter than any other star or planet in the sky. Only the moon and sun would be brighter. Betelgeuse is about 640 light-years away. Its red color tells us a story. It tells us that Betelgeuse has a surface temperature of a little under 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Rigel, on the other hand, is bluer and way hotter, over 21,000 degrees. Since Betelgeuse is relatively cool, but still very bright to us on Earth, it must be huge. Let's put our sun next to Rigel, next to Betelgeuse. Yikes, that's a big star.
Orion, like Elvis, has a hunting dog in the sky. Connect a line through the belt of stars and keep going down and to the left. You'll run into the brightest star in the sky, the dog star, Sirius. The ancients pictured these stars as Orion's larger hunting dog, Canis Major. Sirius marks the nose of the dog, and the other stars make up the feet and body.
Yep, to me that looks exactly like a hound dog. And there's one more connection. Just as the Elvis song says, "You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time," the star Sirius was a signal to the Egyptians that the rains were coming and the Nile was about to flood.
Also in the Elvis song, the hound dog is chasing a rabbit. Well, lo and behold, there's a rabbit constellation up there too. Look just below Orion's feet and you may see a small four-sided figure of stars with a few others thrown in that mark the constellation Lepus the Hare. So as the stars move over the course of the night from east to west, our hound dog, Canis Major, looks to be chasing after our rabbit, Lepus.
Remember the line, "You ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine"?
I guess Canis Major will forever be chasing that rabbit, but he'll never catch him.
And Orion seems completely uninterested in his hound dog. He's busy fighting off Taurus the bull.
Oh yeah, certainly doesn't look like a friend of his.
Okay, you convinced me. Orion and Canis Major are really Elvis and his hound dog.
It's fun to put your own spin on the classic constellations. Who knows what you'll see when you keep looking up.
All right, if you're looking towards the skies this weekend, you're going to get to see a lot of stars across much of the mainland. Now on to your marine forecast for Friday. Across the southeastern waters of the Gulf, we expect a southerly flow between 10 and 20 knots with the strongest winds further south, and then a northerly flow across the inner channels between 15 and 20 knots, and out of the southeast as you head towards the Dixon entrance. Seas here will be between 3 and 4 feet, and across the outer waters between 6 and 9 feet mainly. And then Saturday's forecast, you'll see higher gusts picking up and stronger winds across the inner channels will be out of the north between 35 and 40 knots. Gale criteria here, small crafts elsewhere between 20 and 25 knots. Mainly seas between 5 and 8 feet across the inner channels, and seas between 7 and 10 feet across the eastern Gulf waters. Looking at the central areas, all north to easterly flow across, and then we'll see small crafts in much of the area between 20 and 25 knots, gales across Shelikof Strait, 35 knots, and then seas would be between 5 and 8 feet, and then across the Gulf waters between 5 and 8 feet with the highest seas south of Kodiak Island. Looking at Saturday's forecast, much of the same flow east to north, and between 20 and 40 knots. Gale criteria across much of the western Gulf waters and Shelikof Barren Islands. Seas between 7 and 10 feet, and seas will be between 9 and 14 feet along the western Gulf waters. Now heading on over to the Alaska Peninsula, look for east to southeast flow between 25 and 35 knots, gale criteria, small craft otherwise. Bering side will be between 6 and 9 feet seas, and the 10 to 13 foot seas across the North Pacific. And moving on to your Saturday forecast, stronger winds again out of the east and southeast between 25 and 35 knots, and seas will be between 8 to 9 feet on the Bering side and between 15 to 17 feet along the northern Pacific. Now looking at your Friday forecast across the eastern Aleutians to the western Aleutians, between 30 and 35 knots out of the north primarily, with some turning back out of the east as you head across the eastern part of the Aleutians. And then to the southeast, just to the south of the Unalaska area, and look for seas between 10 and 13 feet on the Pacific side, along the Bering side 9 to 15 feet with the highest seas as you get closer to Shemya with gales in this area. And as we head into your Saturday forecast, look for much of the same activity. We'll see a change of wind direction though, out of the west to southwest across all of the Aleutians, small craft across the areas, seas between 9 to 13 feet and then around 14 feet as you head towards the North Pacific waters. Across the western parts of the state, we'll see winds out of the east and northeast between 25 and 40 knots, strongest winds as you head towards the central parts of the Bering. Seas will be between 11 to 13 feet in ice-free waters, and they will be changing direction, the winds slightly towards the east as you head into your Saturday, between 35 to 40 knots across the entire area, with seas around 11 feet. As we look at your northern coastal areas, higher winds or gustier winds across the Seward Peninsula area, and they'll be out of the northeast. And as we go across the northern coast, out of the south at 10 knots. Looking at your Saturday forecast, winds will primarily be east to northeast across much of the area, between 5 to 25 knots, with the strongest winds across the Kotzebue Sound area. Just to recap your forecast, some scattered shower activity, heavy precipitation is going to be moving up into the Alaska Peninsula with gusty winds and rain from Kodiak across much of the Aleutians. And then for your mainland areas, just clearing skies, and then overnight, expect some patchy fog to develop along coastal areas in the morning. I'm Kimberly Hoeppner. I'll see you tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.